that was weird. By the way, if you are on the market for some new grip socks, you can get 15% off your entire order at puregripsocks.com during our Boxing Week sale by using coupon code BOXING15 at checkout, link down below. Take them back. Umbro is not one of those brands that we talk about very much anymore, and that's for a few different reasons. Reason number one being availability, reason number two being pricing, and reason number three being typically the quality of their products, at least some of the more recent ones. With their latest offering being the Umbro Velocita Alchemist Pro, their new flagship speed boot that features an all-new single-layer Pro Weave upper made from a single layer of mostly recycled polyesters, and get this, a biomimicked B-wing inspired frame for added structure. You'll also notice that the base is the exact same sole plate and stud pattern that it feels like we've been seeing on Umbro boots for the better part of 5 or 6 years now. And here's the best part, the retail price, $250 US, putting this on par with some of the most popular speed boots on the market, which of course begs the question, are these at all worth the price? Well, I'll be honest with you, no, they're not. In fact, I'd go as far as to say that it might be one of the worst football boots that you can buy at this particular price point. Which sucks because I love it when some of these smaller brands do really good things, and I love to give them recognition for that. However, these unfortunately just aren't very good, and I'm going to talk about why that is in today's video as we go over all the details, including how they fit and feel on feet. So if you're interested in learning more, please stick around. And if you are interested in a pair for yourself, like I said, availability is pretty much non-existent based on what I can tell. So Google it, maybe you'll find a pair, but for 250 bucks, you probably shouldn't. Really quickly, if you guys enjoy seeing reviews of boots from smaller brands, leave a like on the video and make sure you're subscribed to the channel already so you don't miss out on my reviews of all the latest football boots of 2022 and of course all of 2023 as it very quickly approaches. So first things first, while I totally understand that there is definitely a cost associated to research and development, design in general is very expensive, and they've definitely saved some money here by recycling this sole plate and stud pattern as they've been doing for a little while now, but developing this Pro Weave upper I'm sure wasn't cheap. However, if you're going to ask $250, it simply should be a lot better. And quite honestly, a brand like Umbro at this point, given the reputation that they have amongst the majority of consumers that are actively buying football boots, I just think it's way too much to ask, even if these were significantly better. Unfortunately for them, they're overpriced and simply not up to par with other football boots, either in the knitted category or honestly, boots made of any material, period. If you look closely, you can see the knit pattern of this Pro Weave upper is very tight, and it is actually treated in such a way where the boots are water resistant for those that are wondering. However, the surface feels relatively uncoated other than this rim around the toe box and forefoot area for the sake of durability, which means that the upper is very slick on the ball. And unfortunately, despite being a single layer of knitted material, which you would expect to be very soft and sock-like, the boot has this very rigid, borderline plasticky stiff sensation on your feet that is, I would argue, uncomfortable. They just don't feel very good, especially considering the $250 price point. I don't see how you could try these on compared to any of their competition and suggest that these ones feel the best. They just don't, and something that I really don't like about these single layer uppers that are reinforced by this biomimicked B-wing structure is that the inside lining material is a solid microfiber. So all of this additional structure supposedly provided by this pattern is kind of out the window when you put a solid layer of microfiber that takes away from the flexibility and just adds reinforcement. What's this doing other than looking cool? I question anything at all. What is really cool about this pattern, however, is it is raised slightly, so there is a little bit more material in this gray area where you find this B-wing structure, and you'll also notice to the touch, very subtly, it has kind of like a grippy silicone texturing, but only on the gray spots. Unfortunately, it's so subtle and kind of broken up by the smooth polyester in the yellow bits in between that it doesn't really provide any noticeable additional grip on the ball. The end touch just ends up up feeling relatively thin. There's definitely no padding to this upper, but it also feels very rigid and super slippery, which again is a personal preference thing. I don't necessarily think that a slick finish to the upper is always a bad thing. A lot of leather boots have that. However, I just think in the realm of knitted uppers out there, especially at the $200+ price point, this is easily the worst one on the market. I like it even less than the prime knit upper on the Adidas Predator Edge, and I am really not a fan of those football boots. I think that says more than enough. Like so many other football boots these days, these do feature a one-piece upper construction with some elasticated knit filling in the central portion of the upper, a dual lace hole setup to work with that one-piece construction that is central and runs nice and deep. So from a lockdown perspective, you get plenty of adjustability, and the boots definitely feel secure on your feet. Structure is not an issue with this upper whatsoever. However, comfort and fit is definitely questionable, which we'll talk about a little bit later in the video. At the rear, you'll find that the boots have a fairly standard low-cut design, a little bit of a mock collar with this kind of elasticated knit bordering the edges, an internal plastic heel counter along with an external one attached to the base of the boot, and then the heel liner is this soft microfiber, what seems like a decent amount of padding, but immediately when you put these on, you'll notice the shallowness in the heel, something that I do not like. It puts pressure in all the wrong points, and again, just does not fit or feel very good at the back of the foot. At least for me personally, you might have a different experience, but immediately this had this really bad shallow fit that I just could not get used to. I do not like the feel of it. To me, it's just not good enough for the $250 price point, or quite honestly, even for a takedown model. And then the insole is fully removable. I'll give you guys a quick look at that. It is as straightforward as it gets. This really smooth synthetic material on the surface, and it's made from a single layer of white foam. And I've said this before, I don't really expect much from the insoles in any football boots, even expensive ones, but for $250, this is pretty much as cheap as it gets. Which brings us to the base, where, like I talked about earlier, they are recycling the sole plate tooling and stud pattern that we've seen on several Umbro models going back a number of years now. It's made from a Pebax material and is really unusual in terms of how it's structured, in that the vast majority of football boots I can't bend in the midfoot. However, the midfoot seems to be the most flexible aspect of this sole plate, where there's actually decent stiffness through the forefoot, which does give you that speed boot-esque feel. However, I don't necessarily think that this is, again, up to par with other $250+ options out there in terms of the quality of the feel of the sole plate. However, it is very light, which we'll get a look at in just a second. It does have an external heel counter that's kind of half the size of what you'll find from some of the Adidas ones if you want to compare it to anything else out there. And then the stud pattern, it's FG, but the studs are as short as FG studs come. 4 in the heel, 6 in the forefoot, and then of course a little toe pick stud and support stud made from the same triangular shape right there in the middle. It's a weird stud pattern that I would say it's borderline hard ground rather than firm ground. So if the field is at all soft, these are simply not going to be long enough and not provide very good traction. But as an overall stud pattern, especially if the ground is on the firmer side, I don't think it's that bad. Again, for $250, I think most people would just expect more, certainly from something listed in the speed category. Which brings us to the weight, the one area where I will applaud Umbro for the Velocita Alchemist Pro. However, I feel like they've achieved this lightweight construction by leaving out necessary structure in the midfoot, which is why it flexes there rather than here. Nonetheless, in a size 9.5 US, you can see the Alchemist Pro weighs in at 5.95 ounces, the equivalent of 169 grams, which in comparison to every other top-end speed boot currently available makes this the lightest one. Whether or not that means anything when everything else is so far under par, I guess that's for you to decide, but in terms of just pure weight, this is technically the lightest speed boot on the market. On feet, I really question what Umbro was thinking with these. I guess to start on a positive note, I like the way that they look, but aside from that, everything about this boot feels either subpar to just bad. And honestly, the comfort out of the box, not good. Even once broken in, the material softens up a little bit, but it's still not what I think you would expect from a $250 football boot with a supposedly premium knitted upper. It just has that rigid, kind of hard feel to it, not that sock-like sensation that I think most people would be looking for. The shape of the boot is really low volume through the toe box and forefoot area, almost uncomfortably so, and when you pair that up with an upper that does feel like it's on the rigid side, it just doesn't help the overall comfort of the product. And then there's that heel. You can see it in particular with the Pure Grip Socks Pro that I am wearing. There's just more of my heel that's revealed than what you would normally see. It is incredibly shallow, and again, just puts pressure in the lower points of your heel that shouldn't be in contact to this degree with the back of the football boots. It feels like your heels are going to slide out, and it is going to result in blisters during the break-in process and potentially after, depending on how poorly they fit your feet. For me in particular, this is one of those football boots that just never felt comfortable. From a width perspective, the area across the top of the foot doesn't stretch very much, so with the one-piece design, they're pretty tricky to get on if you did have wider feet, so I definitely would not recommend this for somebody with a wider foot. And as far as sizing is concerned, I'd actually say they run a quarter size small. So I'm wearing these in my usual size 9.5 US, and the fit and the length is fine. I'm not touching the end necessarily, but because of the volume and shaping of the toe box area, I would actually go half a size up for a little bit more of a comfortable fit, but even then, it wouldn't correct the issues in the heel, and it's just one of those football boots where I question what Umbro was thinking. Did anyone actually put these on their feet during the design process? It sure doesn't feel like it. So in conclusion, and simply put, if we compare the Velocita Alchemist Pro to every other currently available top-end speed boot at $200+, this one is the least comfortable and fits the worst. And of course, fit will vary from person to person, but I think given the opportunity to try these on compared to all of the competition, you would be hard-pressed to find even one person that will say that these ones fit and feel the best. At $250, there is legitimately nothing that justifies the purchase of this football boot, and as much as I would like to see Umbro make a comeback in the world of football boots, unfortunately, the Velocita Alchemist Pro will not be the model to right the ship.